welcome back to another episode of the Rise of Women's Football podcast. I am here today with Remy and Joe from TTM. How are you guys doing today?
We're good, thank you.
We're very good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
No breakfast for us. They asked us what the breakfast is. We said coffee.
We are coffee monsters.
So
Sweet and
caffeine sponsoring this episode, I think.
Always.
Right, we're here to talk about a lot of things. We have some time, but obviously, do you guys want to fill in what is TTM? Is that too big a question, I think, potentially?
No, I think we can do that. It's a sports management company focusing on football. We have a production company as well. So I would say we are a 360-degree football/sports management company and production agency.
Mm-hmm. A
Remy,
little bit of everything. Any notes to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say like one of our specialities is obviously women's football. We've been doing women's football now for
10 years.
10 years. It's been a very exciting journey to this point. Obviously, I've been at the agency now for 3 years, and just in my time, we've seen a lot of growth and changes.
Yeah, I'll get to individual. Yeah.
By the end of this, my mic's going to be over
I know,
there and Remy's is going to be here.
Right. Good? Cool. Yep. All right. We'll get into the individual kind of experience CVs now. Joe, do you want to start with yours?
Okay, I'll give you a potted
vast,
history.
Very vast.
So I actually started in media. So I started as a football reporter online when the BBC first had online football reports.
Yeah.
So I was a match reporter. I then moved into TV and radio, became a producer. And I think it's probably there that I realised my skill set was in managing talent, advising talent, placing talent on shows. So I left the BBC and went to work for an independent production company who had and I was head of sports broadcast, so made lots of documentaries and did 606 for 10 years, which is one of the BBC's big flagship football shows. And they had an agency, an entertainment talent agency, and I was working with lots of sports football male players at that time who would ask me for advice. And so I signed some of those players to the agency. I said to the agency, look, I can advise talent, I can work with talent, but I don't know how to be an agent. So I'll bring the talent and you teach me on the job. So that,
fair trade.
Yeah, it was a fair trade and loved it and grew just by word of mouth. So some current players, male, some ex-players, as they were going into that transition. I'd say we specialise a lot in the transition of athletes when they retire. We did at the time. And it just grew from there. And then I set up TTM 10 years ago. Started working in women's football around 2012. So we had the Olympics here. And I saw what was happening in the States. And I thought with London being a home games and the women's team playing in front of home crowds, I genuinely thought we were going to come out of that Olympics and the female stars were going to be icons. Which they are and they were, but it took a lot longer than I thought it would.
It wasn't the immediate impact.
It wasn't the September after the Olympics that I signed the four Team GB females and suddenly we were flying. It was a long build.
Yeah. When did the idea come to start your own agency? When was it that, right, I want to do things my way?
10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was never, it was never my intention to run a business. It was,
what was that first idea that we're like, maybe this is what I want right now?
I think it was more, I didn't see people doing things how I wanted to do them. And it's really weird that sort of, I don't know where that confidence of my way's the right way came from. I just knew that there was a way of doing things that I believed really strongly in.
Yeah.
And when you work for big corporations or companies, there's so many amazing things about that. But in other ways, it can be quite restrictive because they have a business strategy that suits their business.
Yeah.
But I could see other opportunities that I wanted to develop. I wasn't able to. So yeah, I did it. And I think it's one of those where you can't think about it.
Yeah.
It's not like I spent years planning my business strategy or what I was going to do. It was literally, okay, I've got these amazing clients that I work with. This is what I want to do with them. I borrowed some money from my dad to buy an Apple Mac, bought a laptop, paid him back within a month, and off I went.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't this big plan that I dreamt when I was 5 years old that I was going to run a business. It really wasn't.
It was just the next step in your
It was the
career
next step.
that you wanted to do.
It was the obvious thing to do next because of what I wanted to do with the clients that I worked with.
Yeah. And Remy, getting into your CV, vast CV in women's football. You know, you worked for the Lionesses, you worked for Man City, and what's kind of that experience that's brought you here?
Yeah, so I started my career in football at 21 at Man City in the marketing team. So yeah, it was always my dream to work for Man City, but I never thought it would happen, especially so soon.
I was
going to
say,
graduating.
I was like, first job, and that's it.
One first job, two, getting into the industry as a female. Getting into the industry as a female because I didn't really see any. So yeah, I studied marketing at uni. Knew I wanted to do sports marketing, but kept it broad because I was just like, I'm not sure if I will get into it. But yeah, I did. So yeah, I joined the marketing team at Man City, initially across men's football. Obviously 2015, the Man City women's team obviously went fully professional, and there was loads of investment and support behind them. And then I was asked if I could help out on doing the marketing around the women's team, which was really exciting. It was new for me. I had no exposure to women's football prior to that. Yeah, I was kind of just like, okay, it's different. I'll give it a go. Quickly fell in love with it. You know, we did some amazing things whilst I was there. You know, we set attendance records, season card ticket records, and it was just an incredible journey whilst I was there. Also introduced me to the talent side. You know, I helped sort of shape an internal player appearance program whilst I was there, looking at how we could, you know, get the girls out into the community, you know, because we were growing a fan base from scratch. How could we use them to, you know, help drive sort of marketing initiatives and getting people into the ground? So yeah, some of my proudest work, I would say, it was done whilst I was at City. Yeah, and then it got to sort of 2019. I was kind of just at a space where I was just like, oh, what do I want to do next? And at the time, 10 of the Man City women's team was in the Lionesses squad. And they was looking for a player liaison manager for their commercial team. So yeah, I joined the FA in April, I think it was. I remember doing like a few days in the office, and they were like, right, you're going into camp now. And I was like, camp? What's camp?
Straight in.
So yeah, it was an amazing experience being able to be part of sort of like the support team around the Lionesses. Having that experience of, you know, being office, but also then being on the road with them. Funnily enough, my first game with them was back at the CFA. So yeah, within like 2 weeks I was back at Man City. But yeah, again, did 2.5 years there. Did my first tournament ever, 2019, France at the World Cup, which was such an amazing experience. Just seeing that sort of shift starting to happen in terms of eyeballs on the girls, like the commercial interest. So yeah, I did that for 2.5 years. But similar to Joe, I just had this desire and will to, you know, help those players be able to achieve like as much as they could. And you know, when you're working at a club or with the FA, you're working within the parameters of what their sponsors want or what the marketing teams want. And you know, when you can have that sort of close relationship with players and you learn more about them, what makes them tick, what makes them drive, and their interests, I was just like, there's so much more we can do with them. And what they can also achieve. So yeah, I was just like, you know, I think I've done all that I can in this role. And people suggested, do you want to be an agent? Players said it, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, it's not really like, I just knew the stereotypes of an agent. I knew I wasn't that. So I went to sports marketing.
Not what I would be.
So then I went to a sports marketing agency for a little while, doing sort of like the best of both worlds. I had brand side and also sort of looking after talent, both men and women, in terms of off the pitch, so commercial media work. And then, yeah, I think I got to 8 months and I was just like, I think I'm ready to maybe see what that agent life's like. Joe was,
and now we're here.
Joe was looking for an agent. I reached out to her. We had a coffee, and 3 years later, I'm here. Still here.
Dream team.
Yeah, exactly. It's been amazing. But I've actually got a really funny story about my relationship with Joe.
Scared. What's coming next?
What have I done?
So it was probably when I was like 22, 23, and I'd obviously started working with sort of talent. And, I used to go home and tell my mum, I think, one day I might want to work with talent one-on-one and help them shape their careers. And I remember she came home one day, my mum's a nurse, and she met someone on a ward, and she must have told them about me and what I do. And they gave her a piece of paper and was just, you should tell her to speak to this woman. And she came home and it had like Joe Tonga on the paper. And I was just like, I was so nervous. I was like, there's no way I'm reaching out to this person. But I think it was fate for me and Joe to work together at some point.
That's quite a cool story.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I still don't know to this day
who that person was.
Really? They worked in radio apparently.
They obviously worked.
Okay.
In the hospital.
Yeah.
No, sorry, they obviously worked with me, but we're in the hospital. But we still don't know who it was.
Really?
So whoever it was.
So the mystery has never been solved, essentially.
We found our way to each other eventually.
That's actually a really cool story.
It's nice, isn't it?
It is nice to see kind of the contrasting figures of someone who started way before where women's football just wasn't, the focus of football. And so you had to forcefully, not in a bad way, but start working with male players and male agents.
Well, they weren't pro when
exactly
when I started working with them. I mean, I laugh about it now, but Enia Luco was one of my first clients, and she was at Chelsea at the time. And I
sorry, Joe. If you just sort of lean forward a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So Enia Luco was one of my first clients, and she was playing at Chelsea at the time. So they weren't, they're semi-pro.
Yeah.
And I could take my dog. I used to go to Staines on the terraces, and me and my dog went to football. It's crazy when you think about a sold-out Emirates now or a sold-out Stamford Bridge. And I'm like, I'll take my baby now.
Yeah.
And, you stand in a box and you might have a glass of champagne or a hot cup of tea. And I'm like, no, it was me and my dog, literally on the terraces.
Stepping on muds.
And that was, that was only, 14 years ago?
Yeah, that is the crazy bit. It's not
amazing.
That long ago.
And I love it. I was thinking about it, I was talking to someone about it this morning. And I think there's so many comparisons between men and women's football. But men's football has had 150 years to develop.
Yeah.
So Sheffield United, when did they start? 1880 something, I think. So it's 150 years ago. Yeah. The men's game and the men's leagues has had 150 years. We've technically had 14 years to develop. And prior to that, we were banned for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So to see where we've come from me standing on the terraces with my dog.
Yeah.
Emma Hayes, she was telling me yesterday about a time at Staines where she literally was sweeping the water off the pitch because it was a waterlogged pitch. She got the thing to scrape the water off because she wanted the game played. Like, this is where we were 2012.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks ago, sold out Emirates or that Friday night at Stamford Bridge with the DJ, and it was like we were at a concert and that crazy game between Chelsea and Arsenal. You just go, this is incredible.
Yeah.
In that short space of time. And that's why I think we are so excited every day. I don't know. Like, I literally get up every day and go, I wonder what's going to happen today.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know.
Something always happens.
It's evolving so quickly and it's, sometimes it's quite hard to keep pace with that and it can feel quite overwhelming and you're kind of like, where's the game going? Where do we need to go? But I think you've just got to keep going. This is so exciting. We are so lucky to be part of this.
And obviously, Remy, you're kind of the contrasting of you've come at a moment where it was still developing, but you've come later on where you came in and you saw the ambition and you were able to kind of jump onto that progression. Yep. How is it? What's the contrasting? Like, why do you work so well together when you see those contrasting kind of experiences when it comes to women's football?
Oh, good question. Yeah. I mean, personality-wise, I think we work beautifully together because Remy is the calmest, most strategic, sort of wonderful woman. Mm-hmm. And I'm just a bit like, right, we're going. Let's do this. Like, I'm very instinctive and
the yin and the yang.
Yeah. Right, you're doing this today. Yeah. Like, I'm just bang, bang, bang. Yeah. And Remy is the complete opposite, and she'll be like, right, Jode, we need to sit down and we need to work through this. And it's beautiful because Remy is brilliant at everything I'm terrible at. Okay. And I'm probably...
Yeah.
That's why my microphone is very here.
And I'm sitting like this because I shout. But yeah, I think we just both going back to something Remy said earlier, like we both saw that athletes and talent needs to be treated as individuals.
Yeah.
And interestingly, where we both came from such big companies, like my first job was at the BBC, Remy's first job was at Man City.
Yeah.
Then she did the FA, and then I did one of the biggest production companies in the UK. So I think we both came from these big sort of corporate industry, corporate companies. But actually at the heart of it, every talent, every individual needs almost an individualised plan.
Yeah.
How players need, PDPs.
Right,
IDPs, sorry.
exactly.
In
So
football,
on the pitch.
that's how we treat it from a off-pitch perspective
Yeah.
as well.
And I think we both are just so aligned on that and just so focused on, ultimately, we're just nice people and we want the best for people and we want to help. I think,
I think our values
absolutely aligned.
Absolutely aligned.
Yeah.
What drives us every day. The fact that we just generally care about these players as humans. And I just think we connected on that as soon as we
immediately.
met.
Yeah. After that note on a piece of paper, to
yeah.
the coffee,
From
and
the poor patient.
No, it's definitely. I think the most entertaining bit about women's football is that it's not as corporate and it's not as cold as when you compare it to men's football, particularly. I think personalities on and off the pitch, when you look at players, when you look at agents, when you look at media, when you look at podcasts being done around, it's a lot more personality than there is in the men's game, especially with the people being involved. And I think that's quite special.
Yeah.
How do you work on, like, what makes it so special when you work, especially with an agency, that you're putting people in front of camera, you're putting people in key positions to kind of represent women's football and themselves, essentially. How special is that for you guys?
In terms of
putting these people in places where their personalities shine, but at the same time the values and the intention of women's football.
Because I think.
Sorry, Jerry, again.
No. Am I too far back? Sorry.
I would say.
I'll just bring it there.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say probably move the chair closer.
Closer,
Or
yeah.
if
Is that okay?
Yeah, if you bring the chair even just another inch, bring the chair in.
Good.
Beautiful.
Okay. Got me?
Yeah.
Yep, that's great.
I'll repeat.
Okay.
I'll just repeat the question again. Personalities shine in women's football much more than men's football, especially when you're putting into corporate positions, important positions, when talking about commercializing and partnerships and stuff that doesn't involve football, essentially. Well, even football, to be fair, I think women's football is much, it's a funner place, essentially. How important is for you guys to kind of show those personalities when it comes to women's football, in terms of, in front of camera, on the pitch, in corporate situations, business situations? How important is that for those personalities to shine through?
Oh, it's so important.
Yeah,
it's
it's
the heart
so
of our
fun.
business, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we didn't have that opportunity.
No.
The even going back to the beginning of the business, talking about Annie again, when I first set up the business, there were no women. There were no women being pundits on men's football. And for 2 years, I had meetings with broadcasters saying, I think you need a female pundit. Why, Joe? Why, Joe? Because she's played 88 times for England, because she's plays for Chelsea in the WSL, because she's played in the States, because she's amazingly articulate and brilliant on football. Yeah, but she never played in the Premier League. And then eventually, she got the platform and led the way for everybody else. I mean, you barely see a TV game, whether it's male or female now, without female pundits, without females speaking. And I think for us, it's so important to encourage women to not be afraid of that. And we have been quite lucky in the women's game in that there has been less scrutiny for a while. I think now is quite an interesting time because they are getting scrutinised. We've all seen the online abuse. I've been doing a lot of work with Ofcom recently around the online abuse that both our clients and other females in the industry have been receiving. We've been doing that with women in football, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But I think, the scrutiny is so hard for them, and it's up to Remy and I think we're very protective of them, but also we really want to encourage them to feel enabled to have that platform.
Yeah. And I think it's been a journey as well on the personality piece. Like, when the game professionalised, just knowing from a club and international perspective, like there was a lot of pressure on the players to make sure that, they were professional at all times.
Yeah.
Their social media was only football.
Yeah.
Because there was so much sort of pressure to represent the game as professional alongside the men's game. So it's actually been really interesting for us. I would say, when we were working with some of our older players, they find it a lot harder to bring out their personality because they've gone through that period of time where it's been so structured. And then you look at some of the younger players now, and they're just like, they're on TikTok, they're doing this, and they're doing
dances.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty like Shannon Cook, who's one of our clients. She was the 6th most viewed female athlete on TikTok last year. And it's, it's incredible because she has that, she obviously feels that freedom.
Yeah.
I think they dance in the gym or they do whatever. I know Remy and I bang on about it. We're like, be free, show a bit of you because that's what makes you unique and makes you still accessible, I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which is one of the unique things of women's football.
Yeah, I think I had this conversation. It's kind of I guess the biggest question in women's football right now is how do you progress women's football in a commercial and money based industry,
and it has to be personal,
exactly, while you keep those values of personalizing women's football, because back then when you were on the grounds with your dogs, that access to players was direct. It was there. It was if you show up to every game, players recognize you can have that conversation. But now it's kind of moving away from that reality. It's an unrealistic reality to have essentially, but you want to keep that closeness and those values in women's football of, that community and personalities. So how do you guys kind of manage that? You kind of touched on it there with the TikTok and everything. How do you manage, showing personalities of players, whether it be ex-players or even, content creators that you guys manage as well? How is it to kind of show that side of women's football while keeping it professional and being able to kind of bring in, investors and commercializing a lot of things?
I think timing is key. As to when they dial up that personality and when they dial it down. Obviously, naturally, you base that based on probably the fixture schedules and what's coming out, what time the season it is. So you know that, because what you don't want to happen is ultimately football is their job and that's their career, and that's what they're paid to do. So what you don't want to happen is for fans to think you're not taking it serious, because we are getting, the fan base is growing. People are invested now in results and how the teams perform, while still having the balance of being a welcoming environment. But yeah, it is. I think timing's important. But everything we do with the players that we look after is, we're not saying, well, this is what this player does, so you have to do the exact same.
That individualized plan.
It's so personalized and based on whatever you're interested in. So, we look after Demi Stokes. Now, Demi's of a generation where, again, social media wasn't really the obvious sort of like,
it wasn't the natural thing they did every day
to show your personality. But Demi loves cooking. She loves, that's what she does in her free time. She loves cooking for people, herself, her son Harlan. Now we're working with her at the minute to, be able to show that a little bit more. But then we wouldn't do that with Aaliyah, because Leah's not very, she doesn't like cooking. Leah's more fashion, music. So everything is based on what our players are interested in. And again, just working out when is best to showcase.
I think people think, even just to that point, it's so thought about. Everything is so almost overthought about timing of interaction. What you interact with and when, tone
and everyone
of interaction.
just sees a 20-second video.
And everyone just says, oh, there's a little, X has done a video. Yeah, but do you know how many WhatsApps there were to discuss that? Or do you know, how far in advance we had to plan that, because we knew that that was match day -2 and it wouldn't be appropriate if you did that, or, that day you shouldn't have been, maybe socialising that day because people could, use it as something a stick to beat you with. So it's all, when people say, what do you do as an agent? And sometimes I think, my God, what did I do today?
Going on that timing thing as well, on the flip side, it's us educating brands on that as well. The amount of times we get, can X-player do an appearance match day -1? It's like, no, she can't.
It's like, no. No. It's like, do you understand how ridiculous
Can they come to this on a Saturday night? No, they have a game on Sunday. Or and funnily enough, I think this is another sort of progression of women's football. Even though people know women's football is professional, I don't think they understand the hours that go into being a professional footballer. So the amount of requests we get that will be like, oh, can they be available 10 till 1 on X day?
No, it's got training.
They've got training.
And they can't just leave early.
Yeah, they can't.
It's like,
can they not do it the next day? No.
It's every day.
It's every day in these times. And then even if they finish at 2, they've got to have gym or they've got to have meetings or they've got to have S&C, blah, blah. You know, there's so much that goes into.
And they've got to think about their loading overall that week.
They've got to think about their rest.
As you do.
They've got to think about their fuel, you know, their eating. It's everything that we have to take into account. So you're managing that while managing the expectations of a brand or a commercial entity or just, you know, the media.
Yeah.
While liaising with the club about, you know, because ultimately the club are the employers.
Yeah.
So a lot of what Remy and I do is speak to clubs daily about
managing stakeholders.
Yes, that is, thank you. Speak to clubs, speak to brands. Managing stakeholders. We manage stakeholders a lot, which is great because we love, you know, making sure that everybody's happy and that's our, you know, I think actually it's great to be the focal point where you can have eyes on everything. Ultimately, an all-seeing eye for your client is what we try to be.
What's kind of the biggest struggle, I guess, because obviously when you work with stakeholders, those involved in women's football for a long time kind of understand, you know, what it is, the expectations, what can and can't be done. What are the struggles when you're talking with stakeholders that don't, you know, either outside of football or more importantly, outside of women's football? What's kind of the biggest struggle or biggest points that you struggle to get across?
Probably the timing piece.
Yeah, I think the timing piece. I think they don't always understand the availability of time because being a professional footballer is 24/7.
Like we've had some crazy things in
Strictly
our
Come
boxes.
Dancing. Yeah. You know, Strictly Come Dancing, I'm a celebrity. Would X like to do it? Are you
Because
joking me?
injury-prone activities are definitely what you need to do in the
In
season.
what world do you think that they're
A
going to...
professional athlete can dedicate...
Can do a TV show every
2 months
Saturday night.
out of their-
Yeah.
It's sort of...
It's amazing that they're interested.
It's fantastic because, you know, for 10 years we'd be like, would you like this person?
But reality.
But the reality is like, guys, just think.
Yeah.
What else is difficult?
I
I think sometimes the perception of... Go on.
like brand managing when you've got a player's got multiple brand partners and managing that with new brands who are coming on board. So I don't know if X player is a Nike athlete or an Adidas athlete, understanding you can't then just go and put
them in next clothes.
Yeah.
in other clothes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we do spend a lot of time, especially if it's a brand who's not in women's football, educating them.
Because lots of brands are coming in with, and that's you know, you want it to be a great experience for them.
Yeah.
So you want to be as helpful as you
and
can.
not put them off.
But not put them off and go, oh,
yeah.
they're really difficult.
But you need to explain the reality.
You need to explain the reality of,
Yep.
look, these are the parameters we have in place, and this is what we can do, and we want you on board, and we want to embrace you, but please just, listen to us when we say.
Yeah.
I think we like to be yes. No, how can we fix it?
Yeah.
I'd never be a computer says no person, but sometimes you just got to go.
Yeah.
They're a footballer.
Yeah.
And these are the parameters.
Is it a big struggle for you guys to kind of be that face of players and of people that won't necessarily handle these situations on their own? Or do you like that?
I just feel
As in,
protective.
sorry,
as a sort of
as
of
being an
kind of-
agent, basically.
Yeah.
Being a
basically
gatekeeper
just
almost.
basically. Kind of not protecting them, but kind of being that face for them so they don't have to do it themselves.
I think if you know them, it's easier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So most of our clients, we have a long-standing,
Yeah.
and we spend a lot of time with our clients. I think that is one
A
thing
personal relationship in the
It's
sense
such a
of
personal
understanding them
relationship.
and
It's
being
not
able to
just
do that.
transactional.
it's really not.
Yeah.
Every day we're talking to.
Talking.
We've got WhatsApp groups.
Yeah, we know.
All
We're on.
online.
We probably interact with everybody every day,
Yeah.
which feels quite intense, but ultimately, they're our family. Like we are there to work for them, but work with them.
Yeah.
And so, because if you know what makes them tick and you understand them, I think it's so much easier to advise and help. We can give them here's my view and here's what I think.
Ultimately, it's their decision, though.
But it's on them.
We will never make a decision without involving them.
Ever.
Yeah.
No.
Ever.
We never yay or nay anything without running it past them because it's like my worst nightmare that
It's their-
the request came from their mum's best friend and, the agent was terrible. Or just, they have it's their life. Like they have a right to know, and we are here to advise and guide and help. But ultimately,
It's up to them.
It's up to them.
yeah.
What's kind of been a main focus? Like, is there a before and after moment of kind of managing these types of partnerships, managing players and managing everything that has to do around women's football? Is there kind
since
of
August July the 31st, 2022? Have we?
It's
that's probably, I was going to say, that's probably everyone's before and after. I think impactfully. What was that transition of the before and after of
because I think we've had
2022 summer?
We've had moments.
We had like not warning signs, but you know what I mean, like of this happening.
Danger.
You are never sleeping again.
2015.
But so 2015
was
kind of the
first,
week semi-finals, and I was out in Canada, and I genuinely, you know, we beat Germany in the third place playoff, and I came back and I was like, we're in. We've got this. Nothing happened. We did a few boot deals, a few more people came to some games. Genuinely nothing.
Because I was at Man City at the time. We definitely saw like that first game back was incredible.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay.
Third, fourth match.
Yeah, exactly. And it just
tailed off.
Tails off again.
Also, that comes down to visibility. Like terrestrial TV, that World Cup
definitely
was on terrestrial TV, network TV, all eyeballs.
Yeah.
But then over a period of a season where there just wasn't, you know, now we are fortunate we have far more women's football on television, but even in 2015 we didn't. So there was a natural tail off because brands didn't know who the hell I'm calling up and going, do you want to work with, you know, Anya Luco, Claire Rafferty, Jill Scott, whoever.
Yeah.
They weren't household names at the time.
There was no support to do the job that was elevating the visibility and getting to know that.
Exactly that. So, and then 2019, again, I feel semi-final against the US.
Like this is it. This is the moment.
Genuinely, you know, we're all around France.
Even
that felt bigger.
Yeah, it definitely felt bigger. Like we was obviously on camp, we was in our own little bubble, but you know, we had an idea of sort of like what was going on back home. And, you know, even like from my point of view, like the amount of work that we did with our commercial partners ahead of that tournament, the stuff that was happening in camp, like Weetabix was sending personalised boxes, like, you know,
we had big jewelry, like we had some big jewelry brands in. You know, people knew who Leah Williamson was. You know, it was growing then, and it felt exciting.
For sure. And so even just like at the tournament, God, I was like stood at the door before the players were getting on the bus, like making sure like there was no Nike ticks on the bag and taping stuff up, and it's just like, God, this is getting serious.
Things
commercially,
matter.
Like things matter. Like you can't wear that branding because obviously Adidas are the sponsor, like, and obviously Nike are the sponsor of England. So like, we can't get any fines, guys. Like, it's
like no,
So. Yeah, that was sort of like the second next biggest point. And then I think
and we would like, I think just in terms of the coverage of 2019, you know, we did a women's football phone-in after the England games. Like, that was big. There was no demand for that. So that's 6 years ago. There really wasn't demand for that prior to that. You know, I've been doing 606 since, I don't know, 2010 probably. There hadn't been a demand for it. So to have that then, I think, showed that across the board the interest was ramping up. But then I guess we came back. I mean, you know, we were doing transfer deals then. You know, you'd started to, there were some agents fees. Like, you know, you could make a bit of money on the pitch.
But it wasn't entirely.
It didn't sustain.
It didn't. I couldn't run the business on those agents fees.
So 2022.
We were out at Box Park, weren't we? And you were just like, no, I'm going to go home. I think tomorrow.
I couldn't. So we won the final and we went out and I just couldn't drink. I was like, I just know. My phone was already going and I just said, I think we're going to have a really busy day. Well, busy life. But I just said, I think I'm not going to sleep tonight. So I went home because I was just like, my phone was blowing up. And then we went to the parade the next day, didn't we? And I just literally don't think it was my birthday the next day.
Okay.
It was the best birthday party ever. Thanks, girls. Trafalgar Square. It was great. I think since then, just because they became household names.
It was at home.
I think the beautiful thing about that was, especially where Remy and I come from, they were individual characters. The personalities in that team, you knew who the quiet ones were, you knew who the funny ones were. You knew who the joker was. You knew who the leader was. You knew who and they, you know, Leah and Lotta coming together to write the letter from all the lionesses about PE. That was a moment where they used their platform everybody knew who they were.
Their names had an impact on people.
Yeah. We
That
started
was-
saying
people were
Leah,
getting
not Leah
tattoos.
Williamson. First name, Emma, not Emma Hayes.
Yeah.
Jill, not Jill Scott. You know, it's
The
that.
details.
Yeah, Demi. I mean, you know, it's we use one word.
Yeah. It was like people knew exactly who you were talking about after that.
Yeah.
So that after that, obviously, I think that impacted your work directly
massively.
in such a massive way. Probably
Like
more.
our feet have not touched the floor. Still
And
to this
even,
point.
for
Yeah.
example, we had one person in our brands and commercial team at that point.
Yeah.
We now have 3. Plus the whole, you know,
The
there's 10 of
loads,
us.
literally.
Everyone.
Yeah.
But that's probably the most sort of, if I'm telling you like the direct impact was what one person could manage prior,
Yeah.
we now need 3 to 5 to do.
Yeah.
In terms of the WSL, the wages, I'd say, have maybe tripled since then.
Yep.
So, you know, the movement of players, the transfer windows have got busier and busier. I think we
Busier
did
and
6
busier.
in the
Yep.
summer.
More international players coming
More
in.
international
Yeah.
players
People
coming
going
in.
overseas.
It's, you know, for our business, the scope has now, whereas previously there was a certain
very
number of clubs,
limited.
limited number of players. Now it's kind of, I literally feel
Yeah.
like the world's become our oyster.
Yeah.
Yep. And even just like how clubs operate now.
Oh,
Like-
the staff.
Yeah.
There was one GM.
Yeah.
You did everything with the GM. They did recruitment.
Yep.
You did contracts with them.
Everything,
The manager and the GM worked together, and then you had a deal. Now,
There's data involved.
There's data. There's analysts.
There's head of recruitment.
There's 5 more people.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
If we need to use that comparison, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant.
It's genuinely, it's gotten more serious in terms of football, which is an
Totally.
and
Performance,
kind of contrast.
performance,
Exactly.
performance.
Yeah. It's less about kind of proving themselves. You know, if you get some Jill Scott on TV, you're like, she's Jill Scott on TV.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't
Why?
you want to take
Yeah.
it? Jill Scott.
And less about the journey.
And Jill's probably
Yeah.
a great example of, you know, what came out of 2022 for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
Like, you know, Jill's probably now one of our, what's the word, examples of, you know, that career transition and the opportunities that come off the back
Yeah.
of it.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Total household name.
Yeah. I was going to say that transition.
Which started on the pitch.
Exactly.
You know, made her name. She won a Euros.
Yeah.
But the career before that was
Yeah.
incredible. But I
Incredible,
think
yep.
so fewer
the
people.
after that.
The after now people
Yeah.
see her every week on our screens.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
hear
exactly.
from her, or
Yeah.
they know what Jill stands for and her
Yeah.
personality.
And they kind of have an idea of what she's done before that without really experiencing it. And that's down to visibility of women's football. Because at the end of the day, throughout Jill Scott's career, nobody had no idea who she was in terms of what she's done for England. But now
Yeah.
on the other side of it, it's fun for you guys to do that transition of these players aren't getting what they deserved, you know, while they were on the pitch. But now off the pitch, they're getting the recognition and the visibility around that. Last question for you guys. That visibility going forward, what's, you know, 3 points? I like saying, give me 3 bullet points that you want to check off by the end of the season or in 1 year time. What are kind of 3 things that you want to focus on and change potentially? But realistically enough that you can literally just put, if you want to, you can write them down there and then go a year, a year later, and you can go checking them off.
We do that. We do that for clients. We do strategies. 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
So you can do it individually, or you can do it for TTM in general. What are kind of 3 things that you want to tick off within
As an
within a
agency?
year? Yeah. No pressure.
I'd say staying a market leader. By, you know, showing up every day, being excellent.
Yeah.
Having integrity. I think for me, it's to retain integrity in a very fast-moving space where there's lots of external pressures to do things a certain way, which almost goes back to when I set up.
Yeah.
There were certain ways things were done in business that I didn't necessarily like or agree with, so I wanted to do it our way.
Yeah.
And I think it's just retaining that integrity and that sort of focus on we are who we are.
Yeah.
We know what we do. We know what we stand for. We know what's important to us every day we get
Yeah.
up. And that's where everyone in our team, we are all so different. Like, honestly, that office, I laugh every day. Like, the characters are brilliant. But at the heart of it, we are all so aligned on our values
Yeah.
that I think that's, for me, that is the biggest, that's the tick I'd say.
Yeah.
If we can just keep that in this crazy, fast-paced moving, and football's
Yeah.
not like any other business.
No.
Debbie Hewitt did a really good talk for us at the House of Lords the other day, and she said, in football, the highs are the highest highs you'll ever feel, and the lows are the lowest lows. I thought that's such a good, and I understand everyone probably feels that about their industry, but I really feel it about football.
Yeah.
Whether it's on the pitch, off the pitch, business stuff, personal stuff, everything about football, the highs are so high.
Yeah.
The lows are really low.
Yeah.
And so you've just got to keep coming back to, why do we do this?
Yeah,
What do
the
we believe
reason
in? The
why.
focus.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's an interesting parallel when you look at women's football directly of what you said there. It's the parallel of wanting to advance it, but not getting too carried away with
exactly.
the noise
Sure.
around it, with the partnerships around it, keeping the values of what women's football makes women's football at the end of the day.
I want to make them all millionaires. Yeah. I don't want any player. So we've got some 17, 18 years, some young women that we represent. I don't want them to have to worry about their financials when they retire.
Yeah.
I want to set them up, and I want the industry to help set them up so that in 15 years' time or whatever, they are secure financially.
Yeah.
And that's, to do that, I've always gone, believe in the process, believe in the process.
Yeah.
The money will come.
Yeah.
You've just got to be excellent. You've just got to be excellent.
Of course.
The money's coming. It's, it's worked so far.
Yeah.
But it's how do you keep coming back to that when, like you say, it would be so easy to, we had a client the other day who we had a brilliant commercial deal in, like brilliant, great money, I won't talk numbers,
10 out of 10, but
about 6 figures and some.
Yeah.
And she turned it down because the product didn't suit her.
Yeah.
Like that, just didn't
fair.
like the product.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think it's, if we can stay strong enough as a business and viable enough as a business that we can be turning those things down. You've got to trust that the right stuff will come, and you are able to turn
You're filtering
down,
away things that
even if it's
yeah.
great money.
Yeah.
that
But what
if you
benefits
keep
does that bring in
to
at the
that
end of the day?
individual?
Yeah.
Because longer term, it only
detrimental.
devalues.
Exactly that. It's always
That
focusing
person.
on the long term.
Yep.
Yeah.
And where we want to be and what we want to stand for, and not taking. It's like, you don't get rich quick. You don't.
No.
You don't get success quick. Like,
Yeah.
we're not necessarily going to be successful tomorrow. But if we just keep doing this every day,
Yeah.
we're good.
I mean, you look at the beginning of what is TTM 10 years ago.
Hear my laptop.
Right. So last
I've got one
question.
to add.
Okay, go on.
I would like, it's less about TTM, but it impacts us. I want to see more brands coming in after the tournament, not just before.
Yeah.
And I want them to stick around.
Yeah.
And I want more of an equal spread of interest. Not just the,
Do you mean you want them to come in before the tournament, not after?
No, I want them to come in after the tournament. I want them to start after the tournament,
Okay.
because it's all great coming in for the tournament and then disappearing.
Oh, sorry. I see what you mean. Right.
Yeah.
Not just, right,
Exactly.
I get you. Coming in before to do those 3 weeks and then
and
disappearing.
then
And then
I
kind of
understand.
going after that.
I want them to buy into it and be here for,
Long-term.
The
3,
longevity
5,
of it.
10 years.
Yeah.
In the women's game, and work with the people who know the players best,
Yeah.
whether that's agents, clubs,
Yeah.
federations,
Mhm.
and not just going for the obvious players.
Yeah.
There's so many incredible players out there with amazing stories, varied interests. Like, if an agent is telling you about their player and what they're interested in, listen to them.
Yeah.
It's so obvious to go, to your top 10% of the lionesses based on their numbers or if they're a household name.
Yeah.
But actually, just think about it authentically, because it will pay off in the long term.
Yeah.
And you're
Agreed.
supporting other players, again, just for that long-term sort of success for when they retire.
Yeah. Or I mean, answering my question, I was going to be like, what is the main thing that, what's the impact going to be before and after of obviously the Euros this summer? A bit different than a home Euros, but it's going to be impactful because we've gotten to this point in women's football, and what is the next step? Do you guys see it as kind of another big stepping stone in women's football in general?
Yeah, I think so. I think the World Cup could have been that and was a little bit, but I actually think because of the timing,
Yeah.
the games were on at stupid o'clock. I actually think it didn't have as much impact. Whereas
Yeah.
this is a Europe,
I also think it was overshadowed, wasn't
Yeah.
it? By
Yeah.
unfortunate
yes, it was. Yeah,
circumstances.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So the talking points were not about the
The
football.
actual football, yeah.
And actually, if we, and we've got Wales in it as well first, we represent
Yeah.
Josie, who plays for Wales. I'm half
Yeah.
Welsh. I'm so excited. My whole family are coming out.
Yeah.
Like, we're super excited to see Wales in a tournament.
Yeah.
You know, it's history. We're
Yeah.
making history. So I think
and that isolated to Wales. I think Poland as well. Like
Yeah.
those
Yes.
isolated in
Yep.
brilliant.
incidents to kind of progress.
New countries
as a
coming
role.
through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and you know, reaching the standards to play
Yeah.
on a European platform. I think it will be. We're hoping it will be
Yeah.
another great
Yeah.
platform.
And I hope it
Football on every night again.
And I hope it inspires like other countries to invest in their leagues.
Yeah.
You know, we still have conversations with, you know, leagues outside of our own where, you know, half the league might still be part-time or not operating like a full-time
Standards, the
club.
wages.
And, you know, we
Yeah.
get really excited and about our league, but there's still so much work to do across the world. So I hope it continues just to inspire other leagues to invest because, you know, success will come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no pressure with your important role in women's football. We'll leave you. I'll leave you with that pressure. You do what you want with it. But
On our
thank you
shoulders.
Both for coming on the podcast.
No problem.
Thank you for having us.
It was fun. No, thank you.